Vaughn on Capitol Hill to Brian Claypool right now. He's not only a civil rights attorney, but I believe he's been a landlord or might still be a landlord himself. Brian, good to see you.
Hey, Neil, great to be with you again.
So are you a landlord?
Yeah, I own several commercial properties in Austin, Texas. And I will tell you, Neil, when I read this article, I was terrified. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, clearly public safety here trumps privacy and human rights to rent an apartment. Why do I say that? Because I, as an apartment building owner, if for example, I allowed somebody who's convicted of a rape 5 years ago, rent an apartment in one of my buildings, and I don't know about it, and that person then goes out and assaults somebody else on the property, that person's going to sue me because they'll argue it was reasonably foreseeable that this would happen because of the prior conviction. So if you now eliminate that prior conviction, landlords don't have knowledge of that. They can't vet it, and it's going to expose them to legal liability.
So let's say you knew in a background criminal check that one of the people looking to buy or rent one of your properties had in fact served years in jail before a crime. But they've done the time, no more crime. What's the harm? The progressives are saying, what's the harm? You say?
Yeah, Neil, it's about full disclosure. And what I mean by that is I'm not against having a discussion or a dialogue. I, for example, have allowed tenants in my properties who've had prior DUIs. So at least I'm able to see that on their criminal record, right? And then you can engage in a vetting process. You can have a dialogue with that potential tenant, find out what happened 5 years ago, and then look at their work history and see if they've been a good citizen and they haven't had any other convictions in 5 years. So I'm not saying eliminate all that. What I'm saying is the landlord has a right to know about prior criminal history, prior criminal convictions, and then they can engage in the process of finding out whether they want to rent to that person. It's not about depriving somebody of a human right to rent property.
If this were to go through, would it put a chill on renting activity in general, on let's say even the corporate real estate market? What do you think?
Well, I think what it'll do, Neil, is it's going to increase the cost for people like myself and other apartment building owners. What I mean by that is they're going to have to buy loads of additional insurance on the property, and that's going to be very costly. Because my view would be if the federal government wants to make this law, then they should provide insurance then, right, to the property owners. But yeah, it's going to expose property owners to potential liability. Look, Neil, you and I have been together a lot. We live in a litigious society, and people that rent apartments, sometimes they look for reasons to sue. And if something goes wrong, and they're going to come back and say, hey, you should have known about this, and it's your responsibility. So I think it's going to increase the cost of doing business immensely and expose these landlords' liability. I mean, they're still going to rent apartments,
right?
But it's almost going to be like a crapshoot.
Well, we hope not, and it might not come to pass at all. But Brian, thank you very much. Brian Claypool on something that some landlords and those way outside the industry are getting a little leery about.